You are listening to the Thinking Effect podcast with Ortal Green and Kriegler.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 19 on the Thinking Effect podcast. And this episode is a special one. It's all about how can teachers use movement to enhance thinking. And we have a very special surprise to you today. But first, hello, Lilian, how are you?
Hey, Ortal. I'm just saying it again. Hey, Ortal. It's how I greet you every single time we come on air. It's lovely to see you. And I'm also looking forward to this. And our surprise, shall I announce it right now?
Yes, please.
Well, we have a wonderful guest tonight on the Thinking Effect podcast. And I met our guest, as I met you, Ortal, on LinkedIn. And I was so impressed with her profile, and we are talking about a movement specialist and expert, Gina Bale.
Woohoo!
We're so thrilled to have Gina, and I'm going to hand over to Gina and ask her to introduce and tell us a little bit about herself.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Gina. And just to give you a very, very brief background, my background was originally in ballet, but I have spent the last 27 years teaching movement and dance in mainstream, early years, that's my speciality, and SEND, special needs and disabilities, and also in vocational and private dance schools. And I have to say my proudest achievement to date, apart from my daughter, she'll kill me if I don't say that, is my baby Little Magic Train, which I created specifically to help children learn through make-believe, music and movement. So I'm all about the movement. And I have qualifications, so I do know a bit about movement from the Royal Ballet School, Trinity College and the Royal Academy of Dance. But actually working with children is what just taught me everything.
Yeah, they're excellent at being great teachers, children. And today we're going to talk about learning through movement, which is interesting because, we are born to move. Obviously, our bodies are designed to move around. And in school, we're so confined and we ask children to sit still for so many hours, which is quite amazing, isn't it?
It's awful. It's awful.
Yes, I mean, the natural thing we all know is for children to want to move. And I think also in a recent episode, we said something like, the worst thing you can do to a child is say, don't touch, look with your eye, feel with your eyes, and you can't really do that. So, Gina, perhaps you'll tell us a little bit about the why, what the movement means to you in your work with the children. And I mean, your children are of different ages, obviously. So, what is it all about? Just elaborate.
Well, for me, all children are, they move to learn. If you look at a baby, watch a baby, they move towards something to learn about it. They want to touch it, they want to feel it. They want to, it's all that sensory, and all children are initially kinesthetic learners. So they have to feel it, they have to do it, it has to be in their body. And for me, movement is part of being human, and movement and music are the universal language of communication as well in for humans. And also when you look at the birds in the jungle as well, it's exactly the same thing, they all move. So for me, movement is about creating a learning environment which is, it suits the children's needs, it suits them, not what we want. We want the children to sit still, we want them to sit and listen because we think it's the easiest thing for us, but actually it's not. For the children to learn, they need to move, and we need to sort of think about how we're teaching them. There's been the why I feel that way, and I've known this for a long time because I, as a child, was that really difficult child that was always tapping the floor, banging the desk, fidgeting in my seat. You've seen the children like that. That was me, and I couldn't read or write for till I was about 9. And my parents took me to a dance lesson, and that unlocked the key in my brain. And I was desperate to learn after that. The minute I was allowed to move freely, I was then ready to learn. There has been an awful lot of research in movement and how the movement increases the growth of the brain as well. And I know that Ortal and Liliane, you've been talking about all the different aspects of the science, because I'm not into that part. You know all about that. I'm just in there in the practice, and I see the way to get the children to move. But there's so many benefits to their cognitive development, their social development, their emotional development, their myelin building, their physical literacy. And actually, if the children see it, say it, do it, they'll never forget it. For me, that's so important.
For sure. And you're right, there are many researches that show the connection between movement and the brain ability to remember new material and to process also new information. So it linked together. I mean, we learn better when we move. And I want to touch a bit about children with special needs, as I know you work in this area. So can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, I work 2 days a week at an amazing school in Abingdon in Oxfordshire, where they have children and young adults from 2 to 19 years of age with complex and profound physical and learning issues, including autism. And it's all about the movement. I work in the sensory pathway. Obviously, there's all of the sensory, and we get the children to move. Some children are in the wheelchairs. They have no movement apart from maybe their head, and we find sensory ways for them to experience the movement and to feel the air on their faces as we're moving them through and around the room. But we find that children with autism, when I start with them, I have to have very short gaps. So for example, if I'm doing a movement, they do love doing street dance. So we have to do something. So we had to, and I have to make sure I don't overstimulate them, but we have to, this is a non-verbal group of boys, very active, boisterous boys. I have had concussion. That's how boisterous they are. But I will keep changing the music every 40 seconds, and then I start to extend it till we can get up to a minute and a half, and it takes time to keep their attention. And I'm using different props, and we're doing different things. I tend to have a circuit in the room as well, because they like to have that quite specific movement and routine as well. So gym spots are my magic ingredient for working with those children, but they are amazing, and I've learned so much. And I have to tell you, in my first term at this school, I lost over half a stone.
Oh,
because
wow.
I'm moving and running to keep up. So, and it's all about movement for them to learn. It's all about movement. And it's, if all children can learn through, well, all children do learn from movement, no matter what their physical abilities and needs are.
That is amazing. I love what you said, Gina, about, your own experience, finding it difficult to learn as a child, and you have a real sense that you almost felt a part of your brain was switched on. And there is a lot of research around, that part of the brain can appear to be dormant until there are these channels or these connections that happen. And it sounds like you're doing that on a daily basis with those children in that special needs. And I mean, there are lots of different ways of describing these children now, and we never know whether we're saying the right thing if we're saying they're neuro, typical or what how we describe them. But people in Reggio Emilia, they call them children with special rights, which I kind of like that very much. But anyway, so they'd be switching on, and I also love the idea of them, you actually getting their movement and feeling the air on their faces. So even if they're unable to move, is you putting them in that movement trajectory, which is helping. It's really incredible.
It is. And I think one thing we need to make sure everyone understands that it's not necessarily that you have to spend the whole time moving. Even short periods of time of movement have such huge benefits for these children and help them learn better. And another thing to note, especially today, and we spoke about it, Liliane, about the environment after COVID with stress and anxiety, that moving in itself help reduce stress and anxiety, and therefore helps children focus on their learning and really be within the classroom and be there and be able to learn, actually. So movement has a lot of benefits, and don't feel like you have to fill the whole session with movement. You can do it in small parts in different times during the class.
And it's also good for you as the adult, because movement releases and exercise releases endorphins in the brain. It's great for your mental well-being as well. And in the UK, the movement and exercise is recommended for people with mental health issues as well. So I'm always making sure I'm doing my aerobics every day. And I'm sorry, I realize I'm sitting here. What am I doing? I'm moving non-stop. I just realized that. I was like, sit still, Gina. Yeah, that's the child I was. Can you imagine it?
No, this episode is not about sitting still. No, we're not sitting still.
That's the child I was. I mean, you can see in this, I'm talking when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, I was that annoying child for the teacher. So yeah, movement did switch something on in my brain. You're absolutely right, Liliane. Yeah. Totally switched it on, and I was ready.
And also, kids today don't get enough physical activity. So the more we can incorporate physical activity as part of classroom routines and school day-to-day activities, that's wonderful.
Yeah, totally. No, yes, we were chatting and you came up with some wonderful ideas about the children. You've put on the music so you can have there's a great research that they compared music. They got people to listen to music in, I think it was in Australia, South America, and indigenous tribes in the Amazon, to get them to show you how they move to that music. And the movements were universal. They were able to show the emotion. So that shows it's completely a universal language. And you could put on the music, you could have the sad music, as you were saying, that they could show you how they move when they're feeling sad, and you could talk about what they need to do to feel happy. You could put on happy music, put on a jig. There's so much going from classical all the way to pop. There is no limit. Obviously, making sure that that you've checked for the explicit songs, because otherwise they will be going around saying those words you don't want them to. Yeah,
for sure. And you can also actually, you don't have to use music. So let's say you want to have a session about emotion, and like you mentioned, Gina, then you can ask the children to move in a happy way, or in an angry way, or in a bored way. So how can they express emotion by movement? And so this is another way to learn about emotion in a physical manner, include movement in this session. So if you can't play music, or you're worried about explicit words, exactly.
Yeah, and it's the different speeds. You can do the fast and the slow. You can have fast being happy, slow being sad. All these different. You could get them to tap each other. So you could have the tapping. The slow is when they're feeling sad. For the children who have physical needs as well, if they're not able to move around the room. And it's also the use of language as well, saying moving rather than running, skipping, and things like that. But yeah, you don't need music. Absolutely. We have our voice, which is music. The way we use our voice as well when we're teaching is very important. We don't want that monotone all the way through. We can whisper and we can bring them in. There's so much that you can do with them for children. It's such a pleasure to teach children. I mean, you can go from no music at all, and you could, if you can I tell you my favorite thing about teaching something very special in Greek mythology? I loved it so much. I was doing this workshop. It was actually for the Royal Ballet School, but I've done it in secondary schools as well. We have to learn about Greek mythology, and you've got the Grey sisters. Everyone, they're the one that have one eye and one tooth between them. Can you imagine that? The three of us sharing one eye and one tooth. We are the Grey sisters. Not saying that we're old hags, everyone, but it's just the sisters. And it's really nice if you get the children to work together. You get three of them. Two of them have to have their eyes closed or they're blindfolded, and the one in the middle has to explain, so they're communicating how to move forwards, sideways over an obstacle course, and then they take turns. they're building relationships, they are living being those sisters, and they will never forget it. There's so much fun you can have with that. And then you can link that to Medusa, because they were the sisters of Medusa. So you can see how movement becomes everything. There is no limit to what you can do. You can be really simple, just the clapping fast and slow, to going in full in, absolutely. And it's all about movement.
Yeah, I think it's a lot about being creative with your teaching. So like you said, Gina, I agree that any topic in the curriculum, you can incorporate movement. For example, Liliane and myself, we were talking about magnetism in one of the previous episodes. And I was thinking, well, if you want to let your student express it in movement, some of the students can have positive charge, some of them can have negative charge. And then you ask them to move around the room and ask them, okay, what happened if you come across someone with the same charge as yours, positive and positive? What will happen? What will happen if you came across someone with the opposite charge? So, and act it out as you move. So I think there are no limitations, like you said, Gina. It's all about being creative and coming up with wonderful ideas to incorporate movement as part of your curriculum.
No. Yeah, I agree. And I think a very important thing of what you are saying, Gina, is the connection between the movement and the language development and the conceptual development. A lot of children don't get the full understanding of just a word, but if you've complemented that word and its understanding with the movement, then they will remember it and they have a much greater sense of what it means. So I think particularly children who struggle a little bit with literacy, they are going to find it perhaps even more important than everyone else, but everyone can benefit from it, clearly.
Absolutely. Because as we were saying, language is 4 forms. You've got the verbal, the speech and the singing. You've got the physical, which is expression, the movement and the touch, musical, beat and tempo, and the symbolic, so the written word and art. So all forms of movement, they're all the body. You have to use the body. So we should all be moving, completely. I'm quite passionate about it. I need to get off my soapbox. I do get on my soapbox. And the other thing as well, because I do lots of training, I get because I specialize in early years, and when I'm doing early years training, because we have children in the settings that have English as an additional language, we have children that are non-verbal, and I always get the practitioners to verbalize all of their movements and to feed in new words, because that is the best way of doing just all the way through. So if we're getting bigger and bigger and bigger, you're doing it with your body, you're verbalizing those actions as well. And you need to make sure that your demonstration, though, you're demonstrating what you're saying. That's always key, very, very key, because that's something I've seen, and it has made me giggle a few times, like going, no wonder they're not doing it when you ask them, because you've said to them, you said jumping and you're walking, so of course they're completely confused.
Yeah, that's a great thing about it, because the teachers join in the fun, right? You're all doing it together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're helping, because we need to, they've done, there's a study that we need to do 30 minutes a day to keep the brain growing and active. And also all we need to keep laying the myelin around the neurons in the brain as well, because, from the age of 2, it's downhill. We've got to look after our brains.
Don't say that, from the age of 2. Oh my goodness.
Well, I think that I was reading, they were saying that the brain is the fastest at the age of 2.
But there are many benefits as you get older, actually, in terms of the strength of the connection within your brain. So there are definitely benefits of getting older in terms of cognitive benefits as well. So it's not all downhill, apparently.
I think it might have been for me. Oh no, it's because I go to the kitchen, I go, what was I coming in here for? Oh, that's when I get worried.
We all have those moments. We all have those. But Gina, it's been such a fantastic joy to have you on our program. And what we do at the end is we wrap it up with a little summary. So I'm going to just quickly have a go at that. So the what is that movement is crucial for learning, that movement is something that a big part of the brain is devoted to, and for a reason. because it helps us to learn. So the why is that the more we do it, especially in the classroom, the more we're going to give the children the facility for matching what they hear and what they're learning with their bodies and their movements, so that it makes it more memorable, it goes into long-term memory, and they definitely consolidate it much better. Plus, it's fun. And the way to do it is to use movement as regularly as you can. Even in, and you've spoken about some really great ways to do it, and so has Ortal, doing it sometimes even in an unusual situation, if you're teaching science, or we mentioned at some point in an earlier conversation, even the times tables. So it's taking the opportunities to use movement as regularly as we can to ensure that those pathways and learning channels are being used, and they're not being lying fallow, and we're making the best of them.
This is a fantastic summary. Thank you, Lilian. And I think, Gina, you have a surprise for our listener, right? Something special for our listeners. Do you want to say a few words about it?
Yes, because as I was saying earlier, my baby's Little Magic Train, it's all about movement-based learning. We have a free visit to the zoo for you. All you have to do is, should I give you the link, or will that be?
We'll share the link in the description of the episode.
Yep.
Yeah.
You have the music, the illustrations, the storyline, the speech and language activities, the sensory and invitation activities, planning activities, certificates for the children. And we have all the training videos as well for you, and you'll be able to attend one of our introduction live webinars as well, just to show you what you can do. This is specifically for early use children, but it works all the way up to 18, 19 if you're in a special needs school as well. And it's all adaptable for you. But if you're in a secondary school, I can give you some ideas for a session instead if you can't do that.
Wow, this is fantastic.
Ortal and I putting our hands up for that as well.
Of course, I'll be the first one to jump on this opportunity. So yeah, thank you so much, Gina. It was lovely having you as a lovely guest in this episode. And thank you for all your sharing your wisdom and experience, and also for the lovely gift for all our listeners. I'm sure they'll enjoy it very much. And so we'll see you again next week, where we're going to have a very, very festive episode number 20. So tune in, because we're going to celebrate with you and share something special as well.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Gina. And may the Little Magic Train move and just bring magic everywhere.